Hello. We have 3 stories today from Am I the Jerk? From desperate strangers wanting your judgment. Our first story comes from a man who's at his wit's end with a wife who seems to have all the answers except the one to her marital woes. As always, your support helps fight the Reddit bot menace. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We start with story 1. Am I the jerk for telling my wife it is time she went back to work? My wife has been out of work since 2018. She had a mental breakdown during her 5th year of teaching. She has been going to therapy since, and we started marriage counseling during COVID. Reason for marriage counseling was because she thought I was pushing her too hard to go back to work before her and her therapist thought she was ready. I tried to explain many times that was not my intent, but realistically speaking, for me to keep up with expenses and retirement contributions, I pretty much have to take on extra shifts. Sometimes clocking in over 18 hours a day, and on average, I've been pulling 84-hour weeks. I have been doing this since she stopped working. We recently had a fight because I had an extremely rough week and had the conversation again about her going back to work. She opened up with the same line she always does. We do not feel it is the right time yet. She feels I have made great progress, and if I rush it, I run the risk of losing it. The we being her and her therapist. I told her I really do not give a fork what her therapist has to say, and I am sick of you hiding behind her words whenever this topic comes up. She started to cry, telling me she does not like being this way either, and I am belittling her due to suffering from mental health issues. I replied saying I do not indeed belittle you or not take your issues seriously. Problem is, I am running myself ragged, and what happens if I have a mental break? Do you think I will have the luxury of not working? No. I will have to push through my demons. She said her therapist warned her this would happen sooner or later. I would try to manipulate her into doing something she was not ready to do. This is when I really lost it and just let it all out. I did not say anything kind. I told her she insults me for thinking what I am doing is manipulation. I told her I am working these extra shifts so she can be home and BS playing games. I told her during this entire time you have not even made an effort to improve on certain skills. I told her she can still not cook to save her life and that I was sick of coming home after 12 or 18-hour days just to make us dinner because her idea of making dinner is pretty much a pre-made, in the oven, or ordering out, among other things. That said, she stormed out the house crying, yelling, and shouting how I am a piece of garbage and rather see myself comfortable versus her getting better. So here I am. I do not feel at the core I am wrong. And while what I said was harsh, I think it did have to be said. So Reddit, was I the jerk here? Hey, I appreciate the replies. Going to leave a quick update to answer and clarify what I can. I apologize if I missed something. Thanks nonetheless. Yes, I have been to a couple of sessions with my wife and her therapist. To be honest, it largely felt I was getting ganged up on. My wife brought up how I was always tired, so I explained I am working harder to maintain our home. When I suggested part-time work would allow me to work less, their counter-suggestion was to cut things like saving for retirement and hold off on paying off debt, and tackle such things after my wife gets better. Then I suggest renting out the house to cover the mortgage and we downsize to an apartment. Her therapist said such a drastic change to her environment could have a negative impact on her depression, and advises against such major life-changing events. During another session, she brought up how my suggestion she tries cooking to save us money so we do not have to order so much. She felt insulted because in terms of money coming in, I am making slightly more than our combined income, and she was able to cover her expenses, so she does not understand why we are having such a hard time. I was honest. It has less to do with money per se, and more so the fact the amount of hours I have to work to maintain the income. I told her I pretty much am working 2 full-time jobs. The cooking or doing things around the house was dropped fairly quickly and became a critique on how I cannot manage money since I am making more, yet I never had issues when she was working with how she spent. More or less, every session became what I could do to help my wife. And I get it. Her therapist has to look out for my wife, and generally, my concerns are small compared to my wife's. My wife is not a huge fan of our marriage counselor because she offers suggestions that go against her therapist. My friend has also suggested I speak with a lawyer to see exactly what my options are. After reading many of the comments and thinking back on everything, I think I am going to do that. I love my wife and I know she is sick, but I am good to no one if I keep up this pace. Update 1. Thank you so much for the replies and advice. Was a slow morning, only had one field call, so I was looking over the thread with a colleague and close friend. After talking, I have decided to put in a request for 2 weeks vacation. Going to speak with a lawyer and see what my options are because I was young and dumb and much of her debt is mine because I co-signed and have a joint account. I will go to the doctor for the first time in 4 years and make sure everything is still working as it should. During this time, my friend said I could crash at their place, so I am going to take him up on that offer. This will be my final post here though. Going over this, I made this post for all the wrong reasons. This is something that should not have been posted publicly, and I was petty for that. Even so, I thank everyone because a lot of what was said was what I needed to hear. I do not have much in terms of a family, both my parents passed. Thanks for the tough love. Something has to change, and if my wife is unable, I have to do it. I am young. I should be enjoying my life, and I am not even 30 yet, as my friend said. I aged so much in these last 5 years, it is scary. My friend showed me pictures from before all this happened. I want to go back to the person I was then. I agree, I was the jerk for what I said, but I do not regret it. It was a wake-up call I needed. Reddit voted, not the jerk. In the comments, This Will Age Well said, "You sound like you are almost at the end of your tether. 12 to 18-hour workdays are not sustainable for you, and it sounds like she is doing jack all around the house. Certainly she's not cooking. Therapy or not, for the past 5 years she has basically lived a lifestyle where she gets to relax as much as she wants, and it's all subsidized by you. You have my sympathy for that, but let's be clear what your options are here. You cannot force her to work, either in the paid workforce or keeping house for you. You can ask, but you cannot force her. All you can do is decide whether you're prepared to live with someone who does not pull their weight in this relationship." Definitely not the jerk. The real issue here is that the wife is totally dismissing her husband's health, mental and physical, and hiding behind her therapist to do it. Wait a second. Pretty sure she's besties with her therapist, am I right? I'm right, trust me. Why do you care how we spend when you can just work yourself into the ground and we can still keep the same lifestyle? Also, why are you so tired? Pay attention to me. My therapist said... OP, run. Run for your life. Our second story tells of a woman with legendary crochet talents, but when her invitation to a family wedding turns into a yarn of deceit, it's her husband who unravels a little revenge. In story 2. Am I the jerk for taking back a shawl my wife made for a bride-to-be after she was uninvited from the wedding? My wife Lena crochets a lot and often gifts it to friends and family. When her second oldest brother got married, she made the bride a shawl to wear over her dress in the evening. The bride loved it, and ever since, Lena has made shawls for everyone in her family getting married. Now, Lena's oldest brother, George, is getting married again. Lena doesn't have a relationship with George as he was abusive to her as a child. But if she has to see him, then she is polite but distant with him. She doesn't want to cut off the rest of her family because of George. I work with George, and while we aren't friends, we are friendly at work. Lena encouraged this. When George got moved to my team, I was going to request a transfer, not wanting to expose Lena to George as my team do a lot of get-togethers with our significant others. As it is a family wedding, Lena's mother asked her if she could crochet a shawl for George's fiancée, and Lena agreed. It was arranged that once it was finished, I would take it to work to give to George so that Lena didn't have to see him. Earlier this week, the shawl was completed and I emailed George at work to let him know that I would bring it in today as the wedding is tomorrow. When I got into work this morning, I gave George the shawl and let him know that Lena and I were looking forward to the wedding. Come lunchtime, Lena called me to let me know that George's fiancé had called her and told her that she was no longer invited to the wedding. They said the place they are having the wedding and the reception at is too small for the number they have coming, so we're having to make cutbacks. However, I was still invited to the wedding. I was mad at this because they clearly only invited Lena to get a shawl, which to me is just rude. If they had asked Lena outright to make one, she probably would have done because she loves to crochet. On my way out of work, I noticed George wasn't at his desk, but the shawl was. I was still mad that they had used Lena to get a shawl, and I just shoved it in my work bag. I left a note on his desk telling George since Lena was no longer invited, the shawl and I would no longer be attending either. On my way home, I told Lena what I had done and asked her if she wanted to go out instead, so not to waste having a sitter. Lena was upset that I had taken the shawl as it was causing an uproar in her family group chat where people were calling her petty because I took it back. Lena wants me to give it back. I don't think I should. They don't deserve Lena's kindness. However, at the same time, I don't want Lena to be upset with me over George and a shawl. Am I the jerk for taking back the shawl? Edit. I have messaged the group chat letting them know that I took it. And if they should be pissed at anyone, then it should be me. But I would also do it again because no one gets to be a jerk to Lena. Reddit voted not the jerk. In the comments, WIBTA the artist said, Lena needs to stand up for herself and not be a darn doormat for her family. If they think it's fine that Lena gets uninvited but thinks Lena is petty for you taking the shawl back, then why on earth is there still any contact with them? Cult Queen said, your wife needs to learn how to have a backbone. She's being used for her unpaid skills and mistreated at the same time. Prom Queen said, not the jerk for standing up for your wife, but it really should have been her call. I can't understand why she would have made them one in the first place if the relationship is that bad. Does she have self-esteem issues? OP replied, she does. One of the things George did was make her think she was not worthy of being loved or capable of doing anything of worth. Not the jerk. No good deed or petty act goes unpunished. Isn't that how the saying goes? I get how some people are saying it's Lena's call, but maybe she just needs to see how it's done. OP is my hero. Did he insert himself perhaps where he shouldn't have? Yes. Was it chivalrous? Absolutely. How dreamy. Our third story has a woman who's looking to confirm an age-old saying that no amount of money can ever buy happiness. But things took a turn in the comments when Reddit disagreed. Story 3. Would I be the jerk if I don't change my son's name even though it may cause him to lose an inheritance? I'm 24 and got pregnant while I was taking a gap year traveling. I met an older guy, nothing gross. I was 19, he was 23. We had fun. I was working in a bar to make money while I explored his city. When I got pregnant, he lost interest really quickly. I understood, but I am pro-choice, and I chose not to terminate. I went home and had my son. I also made sure to get child support. He could afford it. He did fight it, though. I had to prove paternity and everything. Through that, his parents found out. They are well off. They have met my son, and they truly do seem to love him. They have provided gifts for his birthday and Christmas. They helped me with extra money so I could complete my university without going into debt. They've taken us on vacation with them so they could spend time with him. They aren't my biggest fans, but we're cordial to each other. 3 months ago, my son's father passed away. He got drunk at his bachelor party, tripped on the sidewalk, and hit his head. And that was all she wrote. My son and I attended the funeral. We spent a week in that city so his grandparents could see him. They approached me with an offer. They had no other children or grandchildren. Their son was only 28, so he had lots of time to provide them legitimate kids. They did not say this, I'm just assuming. So they never thought about my son's name. They said that if I changed his surname to theirs legally, they would make him their primary heir. I think this is dumb. He is their only grandchild and they would deny him an inheritance because of his last name? I said I would consider it, to be polite, and have left it at that. I actually have a pretty good life as it is. My family has been very supportive, and because of the whole court thing, my son's father had to have life insurance with him as the beneficiary. Would it be nice for my kid to get a big sum of money? Yes. Do I want him to have the surname of a man who didn't want him, see him, or love him? No. I have been talking to my family about it, and a few of them think I'm being a jerk for giving up this kind of money for my son. It is generational wealth, and I'm making the decision based on emotion. I think they are being jerks for thinking money is the only thing that matters. I think I will tell my son's grandparents that they can talk to him about it when he is 16. He will be old enough to understand the implications, but young enough not to be tied professionally to his last name. Reddit voted, "You're the jerk." In the comments, Dunk said, "You're the jerk. F that dude, but also you're kinda screwing your kid by not changing the name. That money is your child's future, and guess what? They'll probably want it regardless of y'all's beef. If they find out, that could also wreck y'all's relationship." I Am Miss Sue said, "He's not likely to forgive you when he finds out what he's missed out on, and for just a surname. Yeah, his dad didn't want him, but his grandparents want to involve him as a primary heir. This is a grand move on their part and could change your son's life." What Side of Change said, "Not the jerk. They're the jerks for tying money to a name. If they want him to have it, they should give it to them regardless of the last name." Dr. Julian Hellicent replied, "I'm curious what other strings that money will have." I'm not sure I'd say OP is a jerk. I can see not wanting to change the name on principle, but I think her reasoning is flawed, since she did say the grandparents love her son. More importantly, though, am I the only one that can't get over the cause of death of the dad here? What the heck? He got drunk, fell and hit his head, and died? And then they had to cancel a wedding. Where is the fiancé in all of this, and why are the grandparents so set on a name? This must be really old money. Which brings us back to the bachelor party that resulted in accidental death. Is anyone else curious as to what that whole night entailed? That's where the real story is. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.